The Bible recorded the psychological collapse of a ruler who thought he was untouchable, and the exact same pattern is repeating in the boardrooms and capitals of today. It describes a terrifying sequence of absolute power, deep isolation, and sudden destruction. When a human being finally removes every barrier, every critic, and every boundary. When they successfully build a world where no one can tell them no. What happens to their mind? This is the anatomy of the untouchable leader. It is the story of what happens when power concentrates so densely that it warps reality. The CEO who fires his board, the politician who dismantles the courts, the visionary who stops listening to anyone but their own reflection. We see it in tech founders holding absolute voting control, answering to no one. We see it in political leaders rewriting constitutions to rule indefinitely. We see it in executives who build massive empires and surround themselves entirely with yes men. They believe they are protecting their vision. In reality, they are building their own psychological prison. The danger of absolute power isn't just tyranny, it is delusion. When you can no longer be fired, questioned, or challenged, you lose your tether to the ground. You stop navigating the world. You begin expecting the world to navigate around you. In the book of Daniel, King Nebuchadnezzar stands on the flat roof of his royal palace in Babylon. He is at the absolute apex of human achievement. He walks across polished stone. Below him stretches the empire he believes he engineered entirely alone, the sprawling ziggurats, the impenetrable double walls. The staggering wealth of the known world, all flowing directly into his treasury. There is no one above him, no council that can overrule him, no court that can judge him. He looks out over the golden city and speaks the fatal words. Is not this the great Babylon I have built as the royal residence, by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty? It is the ultimate declaration of the self-made God. He takes all the credit. He assumes all the glory. He believes the illusion of his own absolute autonomy. The Bible says the words were still on his lips when the voice fell from heaven. His authority is stripped immediately. What destroyed him was not a coalition of invading armies. It was not a palace coup, it was arrogance. The Bible details a sudden, devastating mental break. Nebuchadnezzar loses his mind. He is driven away from human society. He lives in the fields, eating grass like cattle. His hair grows like the feathers of an eagle, his nails like the claws of a bird. The man who thought he was a god is reduced to a beast. This is the pattern. When a leader elevates themselves above all human limitation, they do not transcend humanity. They degrade below it. Without the friction of accountability, the mind goes feral. Isolation at the top breeds madness. The psychology didn't disappear when Babylon fell. The tools just changed. The stone palace is now a glass-walled corner office. The golden statues are now multi-billion-dollar market caps and manicured public relations. But the trap is identical. Look at the mechanics of this modern isolation. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens by design. First, the leader fires the critics. Then, they replace them with fans. They build walls of non-disclosure agreements. They create financial incentives for blind loyalty. Every warning sign is filtered out before it reaches their desk. The data is manipulated to show only success. The algorithm of their daily life is curated to reflect their own genius. They stop hearing the word no, and when no disappears from a human vocabulary, reality warps. The leader begins to believe their instincts are infallible. They confuse luck with destiny. They mistake a bull market for their own divine touch. They launch a product that destroys their company because no one dared point out the flaw. They invade a country because their generals were too terrified to tell them the army wasn't ready. They make a catastrophic financial bet because they believe their past success guarantees future infallibility. The untouchable leader is blind. They mistake silence for agreement. They mistake fear for loyalty. And when the crash comes, it is always absolute. But there is something darker that no one talks about. The people around them know. They always know. The inner circle sees the dysfunction. The advisors watch the decisions deteriorate. The lieutenants pass each other in the hallway and exchange a look. That says everything without a single word spoken. But no one speaks. Because the architecture of untouchable power doesn't just silence the leader. It silences everyone underneath them. It creates a culture of strategic blindness. Entire organizations learn to perform certainty they don't feel. Entire governments learn to applaud policies they privately oppose. And this is where the rot spreads furthest, not just at the top, all the way down. The corruption of one untouchable mind corrupts the entire system it governs. The yes men become managers. The managers hire more yes men. The institution hollows out from the inside, while the facade stays perfectly polished. And the higher the leader climbs, the more everyone beneath them needs them to be right. Because if the leader is wrong, then everyone who enabled them is wrong too. So they double down together. History doesn't just remember the tyrant, it remembers the silence of those who watched. Centuries later, the Bible repeats the pattern with brutal efficiency. In the book of Acts, King Herod Agrippa consolidates his power. He puts on royal garments woven heavily with silver threads. He steps into the theater in Caesarea as the morning sun hits his robes, making him shine with a blinding, unnatural light. He sits on the judgment seat. He delivers a public oration. The crowd below him, desperate for his political favor and terrified of his wrath, begins to chant, "This is the voice of a god, not of a man." It is the ultimate test of leadership. A crowd is handing him a lie. Will he accept it? Herod does not stop them. He absorbs the worship. He internalizes the myth of his own supremacy, and immediately the system snaps. The Bible says an angel of the Lord struck him down, not a rival empire, not an assassin's blade. His own biology turns against him. He is eaten by worms and dies. The transition from perceived deity to rotting meat is instantaneous. The message is violent and unambiguous. Power that refuses to acknowledge a higher authority consumes itself. The untouchable leader is a myth. No one is untouchable. There is a ceiling to human authority. When you hit it, it breaks you. Watch the symptoms of the untouchable leader today. Watch the late-stage paranoia, the frantic midnight decisions, the erratic, aggressive purges of their inner circle, the sudden obsession with building bunkers or colonizing new worlds. When a human mind realizes it has conquered its current domain, it panics. It searches for a new frontier to dominate, because sitting still means facing the terrifying reality of their own mortality. They realize the empire they built cannot save them from themselves. The money cannot buy peace. The power cannot stop time. So they double down. They demand more loyalty. They demand louder applause. They become brittle. A single mocking joke, a single dissenting article. It is enough to send them into a rage, because deep down the untouchable leader knows the truth. The whole structure is fragile. It is built on the illusion of their perfection. We are watching leaders today speed toward this exact collision. They build fortresses of wealth. They construct echo chambers of media. They legally insulate themselves from consequence. They believe they have finally solved the problem of vulnerability, but they are just reading from a script written thousands of years ago. The arrogant claim, the deafening echo chamber, the sudden, catastrophic humiliation. And here is what the Bible makes unmistakably clear that modern analysis almost always misses. Nebuchadnezzar was restored, after 7 years in the fields. After everything was stripped, his crown, his mind, his dignity. He looked up. That is the phrase the Bible uses. He looked up, and his sanity returned. He issued a public decree across his entire empire, declaring that the God of heaven rules over all kingdoms, that all his paths are just, that those who walk in pride he is able to humble. He said it publicly. He named what happened to him. He survived it. Belshazzar, his own successor, inherited that story. He knew the testimony, and he chose to ignore it. He died the same night his arrogance peaked. The difference between Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar is not power. It is not intellect. It is one thing only. One looked up, the other never did. That distinction, whether a person in power is still capable of looking up, may be the most consequential question of any era. The architecture of absolute power is always a death trap. It promises control, but it delivers madness. It promises immortality, but it ends in decay. Look at the leaders demanding absolute loyalty today. Look at the systems built to protect one ego at all costs. They are standing on the roof of Babylon. They are wearing the silver robes of Caesarea, and the clock is ticking. What happens to a civilization when its leaders stop believing they answer to anything higher than themselves?